All you can eat buffet workers, what are your horror stories? Picked up some fish and chips recently. Saw they had all you can eat on Wednesdays. So I asked what is the most that someone. 18 pieces of fish and 3 plates. She held up this huge platter of fries every single Wednesday. So he eats that exact order every week? Yes, and he goes to a different all you can eat every day of the week. He got banned from the Chinese place down the road. At one point I worked for a pizza place that used to have a day buffet that I would make pizzas for. One time 2 huge dudes come in the moment we open for the buffet. The manager on duty dropped the first 2 pizzas down on the buffet, turned to grab the next 2, turned back and both pizzas were gone. A few minutes later both dudes walk back up and each take an entire pizza again and walk back to continue eating. They proceeded to do this over and over, grabbing an entire pizza each for themselves for the entire 3 hours we were offering the buffet. Was one hell of a day. Not an employee, but once I saw someone using their shirt as a bag and filled it with BBQ chicken wings. I was once at an old country buffet, waiting patiently to get some macadam cheese. The kid in front of me plied his plate high, and then started tapping the serving spoon to get all of the chessy goodness free from the confines of the spoon. Once he was satisfied with his handiwork, he licked the spoon clean. I didn't have any macadam cheese, and haven't been back since. College friend worked at a Chinese buffet. He said they caught a regular dipping his pizza in the wonton soup bowl, like, in the queue and not at his table, and eating it. Bite, dip, bite, dip, bite, dip. After the 4th time in a month he did it, management finally kicked him out. I had a co-worker that briefly managed Iran's buffet. He said that it was fairly common for people to gorge themselves, then purge in the restroom and start eating again so that they could get their money's worth. There was a fairly expensive restaurant in Dallas in the 80s called Southern Kitchen. About $25 per person back then with food served to the table. Really good stuff. They were famous for cinnamon rolls. The owner said he'd seen many women ruin expensive purses hiding those rolls. Man, I miss that place. Not an employee, but I was standing behind a woman at hometown buffet. She was getting some lasagna or something. Basically a really cheesy pasta that when you lift the serving utensil, a lot of cheese hangs on. I witnessed her lift her pasta, twirl all the excess cheese that was connected around her index finger, and there was a lot, clip it off with her thumbnail, and then fling it back into the pasta. I knew I shouldn't have been at hometown buffet in the first place, but this solidified my stance to never go back. Not a buffet, but I worked at a pizza parlor that offered a lunch buffet of endless pizza. The lunch ran from 11 AM 3 PM. This gentleman comes in, I think he was homeless. He serves up a sky-high plate of pizza and just goes to town. He stayed from the beginning to the very end to make sure he got his money's worth. Well, his body didn't appreciate being stuffed like a pinata of pizza. He got up, waddled fast to the bathroom, and next thing I know I'm being told he had liquid spit trailing behind him to the bathroom and inside the bathroom. I was informed by my boss about the incident. I told him I was just heading out for a break. I was not about to clean that up. I was a customer, not a worker. My wife and I went to Sweet Tomatoes for a lunch date, and limited salad and soup was always good. One time, I saw a man over by the soups take the serving ladle for one of the weekly specials and take a big slurp from it. Then apparently he didn't like it and spat it back out into the ladle, and put the ladle back in the soup. WTF, dude? I got up immediately and told the nearest staff what I'd seen, and they got right on getting that nearly full pot of soup out of there. I didn't have any more soup that visit, the what ifs were too damn strong. Which is a shame, because I love their chunky chicken noodle. Worked in a buffet restaurant for a few weeks a while back. It was fairly common to see people do disgusting things like sneeze in the food or just poke their fingers in things like sauces to taste them. Even saw one guy literally drop a slice of pizza on the floor and after awkwardly looking around, he put it right back. Brought it up a couple of times, but the restaurant wasn't doing well, and we were told that we couldn't accept the losses to start throwing good food out. Not an employee, but our local Golden Corral shut down because the cooks were too busy fudging the underage servers and selling heroin. Not a worker, but I once saw a grown man have a childlike meltdown over the fact that he showed up to soup plantation too late and missed out on the biscuits and gravy. Not a worker, but I was at a Chinese buffet with the hot pot option that you had to pay extra for. There was a separate section with the stuff for that which was raw. This guy loaded up his plate with all this raw stuff and was eating it, including dangerous raw stuff like shrimp. I think he may have been slightly intellectually disabled. The Chinese staff had to come over and inform him that he was eating the wrong things and try to explain it to him. He got really embarrassed and said that he did not understand how it worked. Between the Chinese staff with their limited English and this poor guy who was not capable of really understanding what he had done wrong, it was one of those awkward moments in a life that you cannot forget no matter how much you try. Obligatory, not a buffet worker, just a witness. We were waiting in line for the soft serve machine at Golden Corral. The woman in front of us gets up to the machine and awkwardly jerks the handle around in an attempt to get at the sweet ice cream within. She's pushing, pulling, twisting, doing literally everything but turning it to the right, which would have dispensed the ice cream. She's really perplexed by this. So she takes the next logical step, of course, which is to wrap her lips around the spout, form a seal on it with her mouth and start trying to suck it right out of the tap. One of the workers sees this and looks on in disgust before he unplugs the machine. On the way out, we see that he put an out of order sign on it, so thankfully they didn't keep serving it after that whole incident. I worked at a Ruby Tuesday in Center City, Philly, first floor of the Liberty Place building. I had a couple that would come in about twice a week that requested me. They would gorge themselves at the salad bar for about an hour, ask for large glasses of water with no ice, then both would take the water into the bathroom. They would come out a few minutes later with empty glasses, ask for the check and leave. I finally put it together that they were bulimic after I walked in the women's bathroom and it smelled like vomit. Very polite folks and tipped well though. The professor of my college microbiology class was also a director at the state health department in charge of inspecting restaurants. The first thing she told us on day one was never ever eat at an all-you-can-eat buffet. I didn't work at an all-you-can-eat, but my sister did. The buffet itself was on the first floor, so you had to take either the stairs or the elevator to your seat. Once there was a lady who was carrying a tray with a whole lot of stuff on it, down. Glasses, plates and a whole lot more of junk. My sister asked the lady if she needed any assistance, to which the lady replied, "You assume because I'm fat, I need help?" My sister didn't react. A few seconds later the lady fell down the stairs. There was blood and food everywhere. Not a worker, just a customer. I went to go grab some kind of shrimp salad when a rather large woman stepped in front of me. She picked out all the shrimp and left the salad. I worked at a Shoney's in high school and we had a breakfast buffet every day and a seafood buffet on Friday nights. You'd see stuff dropped in the wrong containers, cheese sauce splattered everywhere, people tasting things off the bar instead of at their seats. The leftover Friday fish fillets became fish chowder the next morning. The leftover chowder from Friday also became chowder the next day. My understanding is that you are not allowed to save cream-based soups and foods from one day to the next. We would serve that stuff all weekend. We also often had nasty slippery shrimp we would bread and serve. I handled so much shrimp on a daily basis there that I smelled like dead fish nearly all the time, even after showering. I learned a long time ago that all you can eat is a very negative term when it comes to advertising food. All of these reignited my hatred of Golden Corral and Old Country Buffet. I've always wanted to make a documentary and just tour the country, stopping at every Golden Corral and Ryan's. There I would interview the employees to learn what is the worst thing they have found in the chocolate fountain. I mean, what could be the worst? A shoe? A finger? Maybe a diaper? Not a worker, but I went to Hometown Buffet and the kid in front of me was slightly shorter than the buffet bar but had his hands in the yellow jello just mashing it. Then his mom came by and snatched him away but didn't say anything while a guy came and made himself a bowl of jello. 10 years old me was too appalled to say anything. I haven't eaten jello since then. Family was gone and I saw their dirty plates with napkins crumpled on top, so of course I clean it up and bust the plates. 15 minutes later they come back and the mom starts yelling at me in Spanish, so I get my coworker to translate, and basically her daughter's retainers were in the napkins and I already threw them away. She kept complaining about how they were $250 plus, so I literally had to dig through a huge trash can full of a sludge of food and drinks for 15 minutes. But fortunately I found them and the daughter thanked me and she seemed embarrassed that her mom made me dig through the trash. Not me, but my uncle is a chef and is right now rotating round different carveries, what us Brits call buffets, trying to show them how to properly run the business and make actual edible food so people will come back and the place won't shut down. He's told me of a few places that even he's not wanted to go into cause of the state of the kitchen, and he questions how they haven't killed someone yet. Most recent one is chefs just cutting of the rotten pieces of food and then serving it. He has had to fire multiple people on the spot for stuff like that. I was just a witness, but I saw how a woman came in with about 5 kids and she made them all sit at a table while she got food, even if they seemed old enough to get it themselves. She just grabbed 2 trays, placed 3 plates on both of them and literally poured all the chicken nuggets on one plate, so it was a huge mountain. She did the same to 5 other dishes and left 5 pans that were full or almost full before she came empty. Needless to say, people were pissed, especially when she did it multiple times again with other dishes, and would often glare at people if she saw them taking food from dishes she probably wanted. Probably the big couple I had. Dude was 600 pounds, wife 450 plus, and only able to walk via using the wheelchair she was pushing him in. He held the plates while she scooped and then pushed him. Back at the table, she was almost having breathing problem while eating. Both were spilling food on themselves while eating. The table next to them asked to be moved as they are disgusted by watching them commit a slow suicide. One of the largest cruise lines in the world, Norwegian Cruise Line, stopped visiting China because of the behavior of Chinese damas who ate so much food at the buffets and wasted all the rest that it became unprofitable. The family was at a fairly high-end brunch. My husband was waiting for the chafing dish to be filled with eggs Benedict. When it came, the person in front of him put 2 on her plate and ate a third, standing over the dish, dripping into it. WTF, you can't wait, you're an adult. Back when Golden Corral had just introduced their chocolate fountain, I was eating there, not a worker. When I was done eating and going for dessert, while I was approaching the chocolate fountain I was interested in trying, I watched a kid sneeze directly into it. No attempt to cover his mouth, and his parents didn't seem to care either. I was no longer interested in trying the chocolate fountain. My first job was as a dishwasher in an all-you-can-eat fried catfish buffet. People are animals. Especially the ones that get far more food off the buffet than they can eat. Then they take the leftovers and pile them on a plate or tray, cover in ketchup and tartar sauce, then pour their iced tea over the top of all that. A lot of people did that, got at least 2 plates like that a night. My friend from college is an epidemiologist and has worked for various Midwestern state health departments. She told me in no uncertain terms to never eat at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Worst offenders in terms of serving up old, bad food, Golden Corral, Sizzler and Shakey's Pizza. As someone who is constantly in and out of kitchens for work, I can assure you that all-you-can-eat buffets are the absolute worst. Also, if it's questionable from the outside, you're probably right. Went as a customer to a Golden Corral. I'm walking to the chocolate fountain and 3 little girls step in front of me, and all 3 of them just go hands deep in the fountain. The family was the first table by the fountain and all they did was laugh about how cute it was. Employees turned it off immediately. I used to work at Buffalo Wild Wings and they would do a Monday night special of endless wings and amp fries for $15. Once served a dude who came in by himself and ate 75 wings over the course of about an hour. It helped that he asked for no fries with the order, but still, 75 fudging wings, man. Also every week, without fail, I'd get at least one table who would try to split the all-you-can-eat. Like just order one order and feed several people with it. That's not how any of this works. Honestly, I worked in a decent buffet in Michigan and I never had a bad incident. Looking back, it's honestly surprising. However, my horror story would be that my naive young self dipped my hand in our washing machine's water tank. Didn't realize how hot it would be. In less than a second, my skin burned and peeled off. I was wearing heat resistant gloves so I got out of it with a 2nd-degree burn. But watching your skin disintegrate is pretty terrifying.